It'll pick you up, and here you find.
I can't believe that, but go ahead.
I'm Steve Erickson here with Francis Kenesha, and we're going to talk about the state of affairs and the judicial activist reform guy. Go ahead. You can do better than that, right?
I'm a legal advocate.
Okay.
Legal advocate.
All right.
And we do stand for law reform. But we'd like to work with, we'd like to know that there's some remnants of an honest system left, where you can reform and you don't have to completely start from scratch and come up with a new system.
We'll talk about the Boston bombing after and what it's going to do to the Constitution and America. But let's start with Michael Nowacki of New Canaan.
Well, I don't know. He's got so many details to his various cases. I don't know if I can do it justice.
Well, if we don't report on it, nobody else will. And he probably needs somebody looking into what he's doing, so he's not railroaded to prison for exposing public corruption, judicial misconduct, and just systemic abuse of people.
Well, certainly he's been a victim of systemic abuse, but he does have charges against him for having inadvertently sent his ex-wife an email, and he got 5 years sentencing with out in a year and a half, and that's under appeal.
Well,
but I think they're using that to, in part, to shut him up, because never in history has somebody actually gone to jail for inadvertently sending an email.
Well, there's no rhyme or reason, or actually there is a rhyme or reason how they sentence people. If you talk about the system, you talk about judges, and you're not a cheerleader, they'll go after you. There's cases where somebody that's been in trouble has even raped children, and they'll get probation, not listed as a sex offender. You do something wrong, simply something wrong, maybe or maybe not have done anything wrong at all, and they want to put you in prison for the rest of your life. Informants can come out and beat you up. They go into your finances. Across the board, they look for ways to barbecue you. And what Michael Nowacki did is, I guess, he's exposed the New Canaan Police Department and Town Hall misappropriating funds, getting bribes, and he's in the process of taking down a lot of the corrupt officials. And what's surprising that the FBI, the way it is, and it seems like they may contribute a lot to like false flags and other events, but I guess they're investigating what's going on in New Canaan, and maybe something will come of that. Can you give me more details?
Well, what's great about Michael Nowacki, he's a fighter, and he won't stop. And because of his persistence and that some of his attempts to bring sunshine on what's going on in local politics, as in the town of New Canaan, has actually led to, whether people like him or not, has led to a continuing inquiry that's opening up more and more every day. And he might actually win. He might actually win some aspect of this. And just curious events that are surrounding his exposures, including the resignation of the police chief in New Canaan. Not that that has been directly linked to his endeavors, but it sure appears so, just by implication. But there's a lot he's doing, and he's standing up to the business as usual that a lot of governments are involved in.
Well, New Canaan is not too far from, it's Fairfield County, Connecticut. It's not too far from Newtown, and this general area has gotten even a reputation for being rigged courts, organized crime, and Wall Streeters. A lot of them live here.
And Newtown? I mean, you're throwing a lot of things out there.
I know, but I'm saying it's just the general area, just to give an idea, people out there the background of where it is, and the general area, the general corruption.
Well, there's no question that the Connecticut judiciary has had a long history of questionable decisions and an appearance of cronyism that goes on day in and day out. And as you know, Steve, I'm also a film producer, and I've been covering a lot about the Connecticut judiciary, having done a number of low-budget pieces on such topics as how judges are promulgating rules that are completely unconstitutional and is not within their jurisdiction to present these kinds of rules. What kind of rules we talking here? In divorce court, how a court can raid pierce corporate veils of trust, college funds, and release those funds to pay the lawyers in a divorce case. Things like that. Also, the complete disregard of ADA, the ADA, American Disabilities Act, in the state of Connecticut. That's coming to a head. The history of Chief Justice Sullivan, who was dethroned. Well, actually, he was retiring, but he was trying to implant one of his cronies to replace him as Chief Justice. He got caught for sealing cases that his nominee had ruled on, unjustifiably so. There's undue sealing of cases in the state of Connecticut for political purposes, and that was just one instance, and it was a pretty a high-profile incident.
Okay. Do you want to add anything more to Michael Nowacki's case, or the?
Well, Michael Nowacki's a fighter, and every time he sees injustice, he puts his money where his mouth is, and he creates new lawsuits or pens to the lawsuits he has. He has a federal case against the judiciary of Connecticut, as well as another federal case dealing with the town of New Canaan, and if he wins one of these, it will be of great benefit to the public at large. And then the public at large should realize that Mr. Nowacki is providing a service, even though he's painted as a kook often in the press. He's not a kook. He is a type A kind of personality, and that was the secret to his success with, I believe it was CBS News.
CBS News. He was an executive. I did an interview.
Yeah, marketing executive.
Yeah, and I'll link to an interview that actually long, lengthy interview that I did with Michael Nowacki. But what I got out of it is that he was part of the 2000 election. He was on the desk 24 hours, and he was aware of one private.
Which election?
2000. Bush and Al Gore.
Okay.
Douchebag.
I don't know if that is connection with that.
But I'm saying there was one polling entity that was private, and that all the networks were given this skewed polling information. And
what does that do with Michael Nowacki?
But he was aware of that. He's been on the ground floor of some breaking events. He's a well-connected guy. He's well-to-do, and he's he's type A.
Actually, some of his early inquiries were about pedophile priests in the Catholic Church and other churches.
And he created a firestorm.
Absolutely, and justifiably so, because there was obviously cover-up concerning pedophile priests within certain churches.
So
and so that's how he got. I mean, he's very outspoken when he sees injustice. He just feels he has to move, and he's a patriot. He believes in that the public has a role in its own government, and he's right. the public has forgotten its role in government, and he's a good example of getting involved. Let's go to another issue.
Okay, but the police in Connecticut and the judiciary in Connecticut and the Connecticut state government is after Michael Nowacki and could disrupt his entire life.
Certain factions within those organizations, yeah. I wouldn't say across the board.
He's being retaliated against, and he could suffer greatly. Next topic is the Boston bombing, and the suspect not being the younger suspect not being read as Miranda Rights, and that also means that
right. This new development where you're a person of public interest involved in terrorism, and so therefore you no longer need to read the Miranda Rights. And there's a third component, which I just got from a TV show this morning, that with that structure comes the fact that there's an inability for the Freedom of Information Act then to get hold of certain information released because of that classification. Where it's an incident of what's the exact term? Do you remember what the exact term was?
No.
Public interest.
Public interest or public safety threat. It was,
public safety threat, something like that.
And then there's an exception. They use the exception rule.
So basically, what I told you before, Steve, America has a long history of habeas corpus and reading of Miranda Rights. This kind of thing, and then suddenly this new rule comes along. I don't know where it came out of, because I'm just learning of this now. You don't even have to follow that methodology anymore.
Well, hypothetically, if the FBI
therefore no state in the case of the bomber, no statements can be sought by the press.
Freedom of information, yeah. So let's say the FBI allegedly set up some people. They were grooming individuals, and they wanted to test.
How do you know it's the FBI? It could be just as well the CIA.
They're allegedly involved in the World Trade Center bombings in 1993.
I don't think the FBI were.
I'll put links. It's declassified, or the information's come out.
FBI or other?
The FBI. And the ATF was allegedly somehow involved in the Oklahoma City bombing. I'll put links to that. But
I've heard the rumors.
Okay, but let's say
I would say that there could be something fishy. You could have a story there. I urge you to continue with those.
The Whitey Bulger story in Boston, Massachusetts. The mafia, the FBI, and the Massachusetts State Police. People were getting murdered, mob hits, and then innocent people were getting blamed for the mob hits, and then so innocent people.
I didn't read that, so I can't comment.
It can be researched, but Whitey Bulger. I mean, the Winter Hill Gang. If people do word searches on that, you can see that the FBI isn't always on the right side.
Well, certainly the FBI's black mark is the COINTELPRO operation that was way back in the 70s. That was not exactly a constitutional or a rightful way for the FBI to proceed.
Absolutely racist.
But I do think that there's a bigger picture. I mean, I think there's circumstances where the FBI is watching the CIA is watching the FBI, the CIA has its own motives, and whatever special ops, I have no idea. But special ops groups could be involved in, and who knows what, going all the way back to the JFK incident, assassination. So, and as the years are going by, more and more information is being leaked out. But I think that, we are walking, on one hand, I wouldn't have wanted to be one of those bystanders near the bombs during the Boston Marathon. But on the other hand, we need to protect our privacy. And because if we take away our freedoms and our liberties and the right to privacy, then there's nothing much that America has to stand by, because that's what those are the ideals that were in mind at the formation of our country.
Well, there's got to be checks and balances on authority.
Okay, so I'm asking you, what do you think about the now they're probably going to have increased surveillance in public places with cameras?
It's something that I disagree with. I'll make that point in a second, but if the FBI was grooming people to test the security and just wanted to get people to pretend to put bombs out or whatever they were.
Yeah. Well, that is a known fact. You have a point there that the
FBI
was instrumental in setting up terrorists so they can have control of the situation and later bust them. And that's highly questionable behavior.
But if the FBI set these people up, let's say allegedly, the Freedom of Information Act would check the government, check their, what they're doing. And let's say that the FBI set up these individuals. If they were accused of a crime, they need to be processed through the system. If the system supposedly works, it would work, and you would be able to detect government corruption if it's allowed to go through the normal way it's supposed to go through.
Well, I think that the best example that you could be following right now is Operation Fast and Furious.
That's where
one and two, what the government has been doing on a legal level concerning Guantanamo Bay, and so then we had that commission that just recently came out with a scathing report against, I believe, the two administrations, Bush's and now Obama's, and blaming it. They actually had a section of this report blaming it on the lawyers themselves within the Department of Justice for, misinterpreting law and using law to bend toward their own goals of clampdown, surveillance, and taking people's rights away. Of course, I'm a ferocious fighter against such attacks upon our individual liberties, and I, as well as many other Americans, are watchdogging what's happening with our government in that respect.
I disagree with police and other authorities having the ability to record all of your conversations 24/7, know your whereabouts 24/7, even if you're not suspected of any crime at all. I had married a...
Okay, but that's... Okay, so we have two different things here. We have them surveilling your computer. We have them surveilling your telephones.
Yes.
Okay, but now we're going to bring up another issue. Cameras in public places. Okay, I hate to say it, Steve, whether you like it or not, but that's what caught these two perpetrators. Now, to me, so far until further notice, it looks like they're guilty of the bombing, just to some extent. To the obvious
they could have been set up and put up to it.
All right, if they were set up, and it's all lies that the one brother was wearing a suicide bomb pack as they were descending upon them, and that's when that first brother got killed.
What's suspicious to me
and they were throwing bombs, it's all a lie, then prove that to me, Steve, and then I'll form an opinion.
Well, if anything, it's awful convenient. It's to have...
Seems like the kids were responsible. So far, it seems like the kids were responsible for that crime.
But it's a convenient incident, at minimum, where there's an excuse for military to be
right. That's what we have
blocking up the roads, going house to house to search houses, getting people used to that. That's just wrong. I was coming up from... I
hate to say, Steve, that's what how the second brother was caught. All right, but the thing is, I don't know the specifics, whether they came to the doors of each and every person they want to search the house of and ask permission. I don't know that, or that we have some sort of warrant that can carte blanche search houses. I think that's an issue that should be discussed. If that's a new trend that they're going to be doing, but I have a feeling that nobody denied the teens in Boston access to their apartments. That they were willing if you willingly let them in, that's another story. You want, because the public wants these terrorism to stop. I want to be able to run a frickin' marathon without being bombed. I mean, I know that you're very suspicious of, the police and the security forces, but they do have a role to protect us to some extent.
You need police to have society, like a civil society, but you don't. You need oversight over the police so they're not abusing.
There's no question about that. I'm 100% with you that there should be oversight on police, and when they divert from the laws, that they should be held accountable. But then we have the problem of the laws themselves.
Well, let's say I'm
and the formation of those laws.
Well, let's say I'm a police state insider and I want more money and more power. Why not allow an incident or create an incident, then offer the solution? I would get.
It's very possible, but
more money in.
I'm afraid, Steve, you're going to have to prove to me that that's the case.
Well,
okay, and if you prove to me beyond doubt that that's the case, I'm with you. All right.
Well, my own case pre 9/11.
9/11 is very suspicious.
Pre 9/11 is Stafford Springs. They were putting up surveillance. Stafford Springs, Connecticut. They were putting up surveillance cameras.
Right.
And microphones from telephone poles. And I was told by police to shut up about it or else. I was almost recruited to be one of them. There's criminal informants that are criminals on probation, and then there's also people that want to become police officers.
They'll put in these systems without the proper clearance, without the proper overview from our 3 branches of government, and without the say from the people. And that's how the administrations have been acting. Though they know that what they're doing is potentially unconstitutional, but they'll do it anyway because they can get their way in the meantime until further notice, until it gets to the Supreme Court in 3 years. So, but the Supreme Court has been ruling against Obama time and time again for unconstitutional acts. The question is whether you can make that a criminal charge.
Well, what can happen? What can happen to anybody? You got a beautiful daughter. And some overweight police officer who lives with his mother can start stalking your daughter, listening to phone calls on the internet, Facebook, figuring out where she's going to be, and stalk her. Pre 9/11, an officer who lived with his mother would repeat conversations that I had privately on my cell phone and on my landline. And he talked about emails I was sending, and he was following me around, and he made it known that I should be kicked out of Connecticut and my wife could stay. And he was
what you need to do is put a federal case against them, because that does sound kind of illegal, and we should question that.
And it just ramped up. I mean,
but you didn't have the resources to
No, I wanted to be a police officer. I was conservative, except for all that religious nut stuff, and I would have ran as for selectman on the Republican ticket in my town. I was thinking of doing that, and I totally believed in policing the system and all that until I saw what they were actually doing.
We need to clean up our system, and we need to have, and better oversight will do that. And there's also something suspicious going on, whether our Second Amendment is being threatened, and they're taking a little bit more every year, take more and more until finally we don't have any Second Amendment. Meanwhile, the government itself is arming itself, as we know from the armaments purchases that the FEMA has been making. So all of these things must be watched very, very carefully because we are America, and they must be confronted immediately, lest we lose our rights someday. So that was a warning from our forefathers, and I'm an avid American on that respect. But on the other hand, we do live in a dangerous world, and we need to have some sort of security too. So we need to find the correct balance where we preserve our rights, yet we can have effective means to take down bona fide terrorists. On the other hand, I am well aware that the story is always larger 9/11 is a much larger story, and the public knows.
Many police officers anonymously got a hold of me over the years, and a lot of them are confirming some of the same things that I suspected before, and then they, gave me information. At roll call, this is pre 9/11, cops figured out what property in town could we possibly confiscate. Is there a way we can finesse it? Meaning illegal activity.
The cops, people who are supposed to protect us have indeed been caught red-handed in racketeering and taking people's property. This is the fight. But this is a corrupt government. It doesn't say our government can't work. But we need to have the balls, and when I say we, I mean the officials, like judges, to allow more prosecutions against evil and bad judges. Well, they're obviously breaking the law.
The judges and the lawyers and legislators, they want a money collection system, and
right.
they're part of the problem. Not
they are definitely part of the problem, especially after the scathing report from its constitutional committee that looked at the DOJ and that found that the lawyers were most to blame. And that gets to the topic of the missing 13th Amendment and how our forefathers feared that the lawyers would gain a foothold in our government as a branch of government unto themselves with enormous power to form our laws. And the original 13th Amendment, known as TONA, basically is about the titles of nobility, that if you have one and you owe to a foreign influence, that you would immediately lose your government job and you would lose your citizenship. And that amendment by investigation was ratified by the necessary 13 states. And I did find David Dodge, who did the preliminary research on the missing 13th Amendment 25 years ago and got the discussion going, that we should, yes, to a large respect, if not lawyers out of government, at least the members of bar associations, which owe to a foreign influence, perhaps, because that stands for British Registry Accreditation. Accreditation Registry, yep. Excuse me, and that the British were wanting to implant their method of law upon the American government at all costs, and that was in part the reason for the War of 1812, where they burnt down Washington D.C. in part to destroy the original 13th Amendment. So as a producer, I'm trying to reignite the dialogue and put it on the table. What happened with the original 13th Amendment? I think we would have a lot better government if we could hold politicians, legislators, judges accountable for ruling in such a way that it owes to a foreign influence. And at legislature, at Congress, imagine the effect of the original 13th Amendment if there was a finding that corporations themselves are foreign influences, and then suddenly that's not allowed, and the structure of lobbying would be changed, and lobbying is one of the most detrimental forms of infiltration there is in our government. The people have no say. The corporations get all the power by lobbying these bills. I've been following this ALEC thing. Do you know about ALEC?
Explain.
ALEC is this protocol within government that the corporations can write bills and give it to a given politician. He'll present it rarely without changing anything. The corporation writes it, and these bills get passed.
These corporations are foreign entities, so we've been invaded from the outside, and the corporations are in charge. We pay taxes. Right. Corporations mostly don't. Mm-hmm. So we're being taxed without representation. We're slaves to the corporations. Mm-hmm. They can take inventory of what we own. what's in our bank accounts, what's your blood type if they want to,
Well, worse than that, I've
they
been
can
hearing
just
a lot
sell-
of talk that a lot of the structure of our economics is based upon this thing called collateral, and that the ultimate collateral were human bodies, our birth certificates, where our birth certificates offer a form of collateral, the labor that we can produce in our lifetimes from birth. Is used as a kind of collateral, deep down in the structure of our banking economics. That collateral is basically formed by banks on our personages. I mean, that's a startling fact if true. And there seems to be some evidence about that. I've been talking with a lot of activists about that issue about birth certificates that never sign a birth certificate at a hospital because you're immediately signing your corporate entity under your name to the economic structure, and that also gives them jurisdiction to do so. So I'm trying to get to the bottom of that story.
Well, the officials also saying that the UN, the United Nations, is a higher power. It's a foreign power.
It is not. By the way, we know very, as a fact, as written in our Constitution, that is not true.
That the United Nations wasn't in
We can have treaties with the United Nations, but a treaty cannot violate our constitutional premises. And a lot of these treaties are heading that way. We're all looking at this Agenda 21, which is going to be involved in anything from
population control.
Well, population control, energy use worldwide.
You pay the world tax to a
now
world
you can have
authority.
this UN force someday in the United States. These guys drive around and see that you're heating your house with firewood. They knock on your door to say that you have a UN tax for heating your house with firewood because you're putting too much carbon in the air.
So it means they're the government, they're in charge if you're taxing us.
Yeah, well, but basically, I'm looking at this Hillary Clinton thing where she went to the UN. She wrote up the bill for a small arms treaty worldwide.
Treason. That's treason.
I mean that is completely unfounded. That an American politician would act in the UN in that manner. It's completely uncalled for, completely unconstitutional. And so basically, if even if they get these agendas in, Agenda 21 in, this kind of thing, that it could always be up for question that the law made was null and void because it violated the premises of our Constitution, and that can be done at any time.
Well, the UN to be able to be in charge of the Grand Canyon, conservation land, beaches, lakes. This outside entities telling us, oh, you can't visit it, you can't camp there.
We need to look at the devil's in the details. We need to really scrutinize these bills, these laws, these treaties that we sign, and if they're inappropriate, the American people must stand up and take our government back and let our government know that that's unconstitutional. Hopefully, the question can be taken to the United States Supreme Court, and they would rule in an appropriate manner. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't.
Well, and then in the 1970s, the police were demonizing small farmers, family farmers. They were criminals. Because they were independent, and they were able to. The corporations and the government squeezed most of them out of business.
Yeah, there's a big story behind that. The Farmers Claims case.
Yeah.
It started around in the 70s, but it came to a head in the early 90s. And the case was sealed, went to the United States Supreme Court. The farmers won. They still have to, they're still waiting to collect on the judgment, but the case was largely sealed. But one of the most interesting things about that case is Topics such as the missing 13th Amendment came up in that case. The exact nature of the Federal Reserve came up in that case. All sorts of things were brought out in that case. And however, the Supreme Court justices, though ruling in the favor of the farmers, moved to seal the case until further notice. What's interesting is I'm hearing these rumors that this what is called the Nasara legislation became born out of that case, and that this will have a very compelling effect upon our society if Nasara ever, if it's one, real, and two, ever came into effect and changed the whole premise of our economic system, including the discombobulating the Federal Reserve and having a bank that is truly government run, unlike the Federal Reserve. All of these things will have a profound effect upon our society, and eventually something's going to happen in a very big way.
Well, pre 9/11, police were targeting self-employed and small businesses that were not organized crime. I was considering being a police officer, and that's one of the things that we talked about is infiltrating. And if you're organized crime, you can have a business. If you know somebody important, you can have a business.
Yeah.
Or key property, like commercial property or rental properties that are in key areas. You pretty much have to be aligned with the organized crime town structure, the police, the court system. If you're not, they'll just toast. They'll end up owning your property like it's a fire sale if they want it. They can, the health department, the building inspector, the police, the courts. They're like piranha fish, and they'll just chew your ankles
There's
up.
some jurisdictions where some bad things have happened, and these cases need to go forth, and we need to root out the corruption within the system as much as we can.
Let's talk about the inheritances. I've heard plenty of people in Connecticut talking about they're threatened with gag orders, with being killed, and this and that because their inheritance is stolen. One elderly couple drove up through Connecticut, or individual, and I have information on that. And they were put in a mental hospital, and then their inheritance was taken away. The adult children's inheritance was taken away just for driving through Connecticut. There's a New York case where that woman with $20 million was, you don't have to mention her name, but why don't you mention the facts that you've researched on that? That New York woman, $20 million inheritance, and she's being threatened. And
well, it was mostly it was two things. It was a corrupt bank that was running that woman's trust, and
you can't say the bank. You won't.
I can't remember the bank, but it might have been the Deutsche Bank.
I thought it was the New York Trust or something. No.
Yeah, well, yeah, something like that. Anyway, they were supposed to be trustees of the account, and they ripped off huge amounts of a certain inheritance from this woman's second husband. He had children from a previous marriage, and the authorities, the bankers, and the authorities that be conspired with the other beneficiaries of that trust, and they have a certain amount of power to try to vote and have the trust go a certain way. So it's a complicated story. But what happened was when this certain elderly lady was trying to get justice in a court, the judge was totally corrupt and would rule clearly only for the bank and try to hide. This is what judges do. They try to make evidence inadmissible that's perfectly admissible that would show the corruption. And what was uncovered is that this judge was involved with working with the bank at one point in his life, so he had no right to hear the case. And only when these people kicked and screamed and finally got some media on their case did the judge finally recuse himself. And that is totally corrupt. And it was a form of racketeering as far as I'm
Well, if he
concerned.
works for the bank,
And
he's
then
getting
judge
paid
like
from the
that should
bank.
go to jail. All right, and that's one of the problems. The judges give themselves immunity, but they don't have immunity for everything. But the thing is, to finally get that accountability is near impossible.
What was the judge's name and what courthouse?
I don't remember.
Okay, convenient. Well,
I have to review my notes. Judge Sirica.
Really?
No, some guy with an S, some judge with an S.
Okay.
I wish I could. I did a fantastic interview with this lady and her assistant, and they did some really good work. But they're just so scared of the system that they're totally recluse.
And that's
and they want. I put it on YouTube, but on a private channel, waiting for them to allow me to put it public, because she did hire me for the video, so it was her property.
Well, she got $150,000 out of a $20 million
Exactly.
that inheritance. So the banks and the judges and the lawyers stole it, and now she's afraid for being locked up for talking about it. Yeah,
right. And unfortunately, how I see things, cases like that ending, someday she's not a youngster, and the court case will last longer than she will, and when she dies, there's no court case. So it's too bad she didn't want to go public with that great interview.
That's New York. Can you tell me what town or district or?
It was
New York City.
No, it's outside of New York.
So you're not going to say what?
What difference does it make? I'm not going to tell you who she is. She wants to remain anonymous at this point.
Well, in the same jurisdiction, didn't you talk about a guy that got beaten with a baseball bat because he wanted his inheritance?
Well, that was not quite the same jurisdiction. That was down in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And the guy had his. What happened was these officials came to take this guy's house. Can't remember his name. He was murdered.
With a baseball bat.
With a baseball bat, because he wouldn't shut up.
About the court system ripping him off.
What happened was they barged his house, saying we're taking your house. There's a court order allowing us to foreclose on the house. He had no bills on the house. He owned the house outright, and he proved to the court that there were false, forged documents. And still, after all that, they didn't give him back his property, and he got murdered before he could do more about it.
And wasn't the judge's wife a realtor who benefited also?
Yes, the certain very corrupt judge in Brooklyn, and his wife, who was a realtor, were conspiring to do this to the whole neighborhood so they could tear the whole neighborhood down and build these big office buildings to make lots of money. Yes, this kind of thing goes on. It's corrupt at the core. But, I'm not really giving the public much here. I can just say generally this stuff goes on, but you have to study these cases for hours on end to see what went wrong and how we can move to create a system that doesn't allow this kind of corruption to persist. We know that the probate courts are some of the most corrupt in the country, and even Chief Justice Edith Jones from California said that the probate court system is corrupt beyond repair, and even John Ashcroft was most outspoken against the corrupt probate courts and courts in general, even conducting racketeering. But then Ashcroft was silenced with promises that he would get hundreds of millions of dollars worth of lawyering business if he just shut up.
And isn't he a lobbyist now in Washington, D.C.? John Ashcroft, the former U.S. Attorney General.
Right.
So if you go with a bag of money to see John Ashcroft, you can get whatever you want. He's a lobbyist.
You can pretty much say that about any lawyer, and hopefully that they can actually do something. But the collusion that goes on between corporate banking interests and corporate interests and judges and the unjust taking of people's properties is a phenomenon that's corrupt phenomenon that has to be remedied someday, because it's down to the essentials of being an American and having the pursuit of happiness, being able to do normal basic things in your lives, like have families, have property, have your papers, you know, your right to property, papers, and what's the third thing?
Goodbye.
And your privacy. All of those things are being threatened on a very fundamental level with today's laws. So, okay, so where else do you want to take this interview? I mean, that's enough for now. I just want to really basically say that I am a television producer. I really want to pursue this and get into dialogue and get on network television. Discussion about the original missing 13th Amendment. I think that's going to do a lot in helping change our government. One thing that you and I, Steve, have been covering, and you did a great job going down to the New Hampshire legislature.
Up to, yeah.
Is that, why don't you take it from there and explain what you did there?
I met Gus Brenton, and
who is a advocate on the missing 13th Amendment.
And what is Mr. Johnson's first name? He was, and
You're
then
right.
And then there's Representative Tremblay from New Hampshire. That was
David Johnson, by the way.
David Johnson, yeah. I think they all did great testimony. And
what were they trying to do?
Have the New Hampshire, the missing part of the 13th Amendment adopted into the New Hampshire Constitution.
And it will be the first state having done so. And they actually got 64 legislators to vote for it. It wasn't nearly enough, but it showed that there was some support and that it was an issue that was worth considering. And had New Hampshire done this and gotten into the Constitution, the acknowledgement of the original missing 13th Amendment, that you can't hold a title of nobility in government and owe to a foreign influence, and have proven that you would lose your citizenship, that would be enormously powerful for society at large.
Yeah.
So we need to have this discussion and follow other states making the same efforts. Once one state does it, another state will do it, then another, and then before you know it, you have a phenomenon.
Yeah, and if Obama is a citizen, he'd have his citizenship stripped for taking foreign money and for acting for foreign powers. That treasonous bastard.
Well, I'm gonna be honest about Obama. I think that he has a constitutional and a problem for constitutional adherences. But on the other hand, when you say that he owes to corporations, there's one thing I'm on his side for, and that's his energy policy. And he has met the oil companies eye to eye, saying it's not going to be business as usual and we need to create more electric cars. And there's no reason why you, oil companies, should get $4 billion in tax abatements when we could put that into research and development for electric car infrastructure in the United States.
You could put some of his
So
words
for that, he's been most outspoken, and no other president has ever done that. All right, so for that, I give him credit. Not for anything else. I don't like what he's doing against our civil liberties, but he doesn't. He's not always on the side of the corporations.
When isn't a lying scumbag not a lying scumbag? He's just an
All
out-and-out
politicians
liar.
are lying scumbags.
But
every last one.
His campaign promises change, and
There's no question about it. I'm just saying, for his energy policy, you made a statement that he was pro-corporate corporation. And I'm saying that for something as big as energy and oil companies, he's not. So there's gray areas in every situation. I'm not defending him, Obama, but I do like the fact that he has met eye to eye with the oil companies, and he would like to have a new energy infrastructure, grow faster, so we can create marketplaces here in the United States and bring back our manufacturing, doing something really great. I'm all for that. That's the business I'm in.
Well, it's a good thing that a war criminal is green like that.
No comment. But in terms of Guantanamo Bay, there's definitely some constitutional problems that he's not addressing.
He said he's going to close it and this and that.
He says he's going to do something, but he's not. And he's with these executive orders, he's doing more damage to our civil rights than any other president in history.
Well, the NDAA, December 31st, 2011, signs it, just before New Year's. So he sneaks it past everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's anybody.
That's
can
slime ball tactics, I admit.
And so anybody can be arrested because a high official. What's a high official? A mailman. It's you can have your just be whisked away. No hearing date. You can be tortured. You can be killed. Anywhere in the world for just because somebody puts you on
a
a
whim
list.
that a high official calls you a terrorist. We need to examine the NDAA very
So
closely.
all guns could be confiscated, all property.
I certainly wrote
NDAA.
my congressman giving my reservations, and some of my congressmen wrote back saying, "Well, there's some aspects of the NDAA we like. However, we do not go for those portions in the NDAA that impede upon our constitutional rights."
Well, if you could be put on a list and taken away, your property can be taken away, your life can be taken.
Right.
You could be raped and tortured.
Well, a president can just outright declare martial law with a swipe of a pen, and that happens anyway.
Yeah.
And martial law, and that's always been the case in the history of America.
So with all these wheeled tanks
martial
and all
law,
this,
they can take everything away.
with all these military roadblocks, how all they got to do is say, well, that's it, martial law. I'll shut it down.
Okay,